All right. Good morning. Good morning. Great to see everybody. People are connecting, so we're going to give about a couple of minutes for folks to dial in, and we'll start our fun show. All right, it is top of the hour, and I want to kick off this business chat on effective networking today. And I'm so glad to have everybody on the call. I'm going to let everybody know about the code of conduct that's going to be dropped into the chat here. I'm sure that each one of you who signed up already agreed to the code of conduct. And I just want to let you know that we've been having this a business chat about every other month, and we're always looking for topics to discuss based on the interest of our community. And another interesting part about this discussion that we have today, the talk get recorded, and SCA is going to be putting this on their social network, so you can access this information later on. So thanks again for joining all of you today. Just looking so forward to an interesting discussion today. I am going to start by having each one of the panelists introduce themselves, and then we go into our discussion. So may I start with Aaryn?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Aaryn Pratt. I'm the Chief People Officer for Peet's Coffee, based here in Emeryville. I'm really delighted to join you, Jeanine, today. So thank you for the invitation, and to join Alicia and Eli this morning as well, and Brooke, to talk about the importance of networking. As some of you may know, Peet's is the original craft coffee and specialty roaster. We have about 4,300 Peetniks bringing premium coffee to grocery shelves across the United States, and about 400 retail and licensed locations, including our growth in China. In addition to Peet's Coffee, we have a family of brands that you may see based on wherever you're sitting in the US, especially, including Stumptown Coffee, Intelligentsia, and Mighty Leaf. I joined Peet's a little over 9 months ago, most recently from Gap Inc. I'm originally from Sonoma County, where I was raised in foster care, and I'm a first-generation college graduate. So the reason that I share that is the topic of networking is near and dear to my heart, as it's been critical for me in making connections and forging a path, and because it's how I was raised, and I believe in building and expanding your village, and the village is what grows, nourishes, and supports you. So I'm really delighted to be here, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaryn, for that wonderful intro. So I'll go to Brooke. Brooke, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Brooke Gray. I'm the Director of People for Equator Coffees, and Equator is also headquartered here in the Bay Area. We were founded in 1995 by Helen Russell and Brooke McDonald. We are a coffee roaster located in San Rafael, California. We're also a retail operator and a coffee farm owner. We have 9 cafes currently in the Bay Area, and we're opening our first cafe in Southern California this week. Myself, I've been here with Equator for over a year now, and I'm from the Bay Area as well. I have been in the hospitality business for the last 20 plus years, primarily in San Francisco and in the Bay Area in general. Networking, just like Aaryn said, networking is so important. There's a lot of people, places, positions that I've found myself into, landing into, that were all results of networking. And there's so many different forms. So I'm excited to dive into it today and share what I've experienced and what I'm currently experiencing and how things have changed. So thank you so much, Jeanine and the SCA, for including me today. I'm excited about the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Brooke, for the introduction. And I'm going to go to Eli. Eli, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Eli Salomon, co-founder and CEO of Ground Control. Ground Control is a totally new way to brew coffee. We have hundreds of customers all around the world that are using Ground Control to brew up to a gallon of iced lattes with a minute of work, cold brew in 8 minutes, and hot coffee that's as good as it gets. Some of our customers include, actually Equator was our very first customer. Peet's portfolio company, Intelligentsia, uses Ground Control to power several of its cafes. And we have customers like Onyx Coffee Lab and Brandywine as well that are powering their cafes with our unique and very versatile technology. I brought to market several new brewing methods that have won SCA's Best New Product Award, including ground control, and I'm a licensed Q grader Arabica. Now I'm really excited to be here today to chat about my networking experiences. I've been in a lot of different industries. I was a data scientist, a lawyer, and I've worked for technology investors as well. So I have a lot of different viewpoints on what a successful networking looks like and how you can incorporate it into your daily life. I think successful networking starts with an authenticity and a sort of humility that comes from a desire to just grow yourself and your network. So I'm excited to share my experiences and to learn from the other speakers as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eli. So for those who don't know me, I am Jeanine Niyonzima-Aroian. I am the founder of JNP Coffee. I also am the founder of a nonprofit called Burundi Friends International. I've been serving on the SCA US chapter as a coordinator, as a volunteer, and also I've been recently elected to the board of SCA as of this past January. And I've been holding this business chat for about over a year now. We've been having this business chat about every other month, and we take info from our community on what topics we should be discussing, and we bring them forward, and we find great panelists like we have today who can share with us the insight about different topics that our community is interested in. And as I had mentioned earlier, this is going to be recorded and accessible to all the community after the fact. And please feel free to put your chat or your question in the chat, and we are going to leave about 15 minutes at the end for everybody to ask questions. And I'm going to kick off our effective networking topic today, which is a big topic in general, in life, actually in general overall. And one of the good questions I'm going to start with is, please share with us what is bad networking. And I will start with, hey, who wants to start? Actually can jump in. What is bad networking? What is the thing that it's a no-no?
That's a great question. What is bad networking? I think there's two sides to that, Jeanine. And one is networking can be really great and it can be really challenging. And in some ways with modern technology, it's made it easier to network because we can connect, from anywhere in the world. And in other ways, it's made it more difficult. And so you want to reach out and do a blind connection, and there's no response. And so I think you have to be resilient in this. And so I don't know that maybe there's bad networking, but also, and Ellie mentioned it as well, is you have to be authentic when you reach out and know what you're trying to get to, and be willing to give back as well, not just take. I think networking goes two ways. So I don't know that I answered what bad networking is, but I know that there's challenges in networking, and how do you be resilient in that to get through it and really build a great network.
Thank you. Ellie, you want to give your 2 cents? I know we talked about this topic last week a little bit and could not, get off for a while. So what would you suggest to our audience to get away off? In other words, what is the bad networking? Absolutely.
Just riffing off of what Aaryn said, let me start off with how I generally think about networking, which is it's a state of mind. It's a receptivity to being connected with other people and doing so authentically. I would say that bad networking is any type of, or at least one mode of bad networking that's very common that I would definitely strongly try to avoid is overtly just sending out or spamming people messages and saying, look, I'm just trying to grow my network, or sending people LinkedIn messages that you don't know, and being generic. I think that the most bad type of networking is a networking where you feel like it's a routine and you're just going through the motions and you're not genuinely looking to develop a relationship with people. So I think that's really what defines bad networking, is when you're just going through a routine, or you view it as some kind of algorithm, not as a genuine connection building exercise.
Yeah, thank you. I see somebody also here in the chat, Bill, who said that self-centered or self-aggrandizing is negative for networking. It's not something you want to do. So, Brooke, you want to share with us what's in your point of view? What is the no-no? What is bad networking in your point of view?
Well, it's Ellie and we spoke about this last week, and I think it's genuine authenticity, right? You have these intros where you're immediately talking about the product you're selling, or it's a blanket copy and paste. You can tell that your name's been inserted in there. There's no time that's taken in that introduction. So in the bad part, it's, you feel it. You feel that it's a sales pitch. It's like, this is not, the sales pitch. This is networking. This is building and maintaining a relationship, and it takes time and it's a process. So don't rush into it. If you're looking to build your numbers, a lot of people are not going to want to, network with you. It should be genuine and targeted as far as how can this be a reciprocal relationship.
Yes.
So I think talking too much, is the same as like, okay, and when I was going to say one of the effective tools is listening. So one thing is you're just rambling and talking. That is not, a great way to network.
Yeah. I just want to add to that, because I think there's something that both of you said. It's about being purposeful and intentful and knowing your audience. And so there's so often that I just send something to the garbage because they are sending me a video. I'm getting things like, okay, here's a video of my dog just to get my attention, and it's making me mad. Or someone sent me a coffee card in really good intent from a competitor. And so they don't really know who I am and what I'm about and what is going to make me want to reach back out and have a conversation. Now that's a little different because those are sales calls. But you're right. And you've got to know your purpose and intent and what do you want to get out of it and give back as well. I love that, Brooke and Ellie.
Thank you. And actually that takes some work. So I think actually takes works to just like not, but, really to not, do bot networking to actually have effective networking. So going from the bot networking to actually what is good networking, let's share a little bit with our, audience in terms of what you might be able to share in terms of like tools. What are the tools that are out there that can help people when they are doing networking face-to-face in person versus when they are doing networking online, when you actually don't have somebody in front of you. I think it's always great when you have like a two-way street, like you talk about listening to someone and then, be able to actually, very well understanding where the person is coming from, what they are, who they are, what might be of an interest for them. Now, when you don't have that person in front of you and you're trying to actually network online, there's some different techniques and styles that maybe one should be using. Can you share a little bit with us here in terms of what is, personal versus, online networking, and what are the tools that people can access? I'm going to start now again. I'm going to start with Ellie just to mix it up.
So I would say in person, I think the most important thing for networking is having it be sort of non-networking, right? So if you're in a place, let's say it's an event, let's say it's a get together, and you go in there with the mindset of I need to network, I need to get people's numbers, I need to get their business cards, I need to understand who they are and why they're important. People tend to pick up on those things, right? And nobody wants to feel like they're being targeted for networking. I think that in-person networking, especially if you're going to small events, that the main decision is where do you go and how are you going to be prepared for that event? And I think the preparation involves, developing yourself, right? Being funny, being interesting, knowing about other people, keeping track of the conversations you're having, thoughtful and purposeful in your follow-up. But I would say if you go to an event with a very specific intent in mind, I need to meet this person or I need that from them, that I would say is not it doesn't tend to be effective. Some people are good at that. It's not the style that I would necessarily approach it from. I think networking is growing your network generally. And then when you want to access that network, hopefully you've done something for them or you've built a relationship where you can reach out later. But networking is not about like, I need a job tomorrow, so now I need to go to all these events. Ideally, you're building your network your entire life. Now, as far as online networking, it's a little different, especially in the age of COVID. We can't necessarily meet people very easily, but we still want to get connected to people. Being involved in group activities, being part of like different SCA groups. I would say being part of forums, being part of the online community, having a social presence. These are all ways of building your personal brand, learning what other people in the community are up to, and sending emails, making introductions, reaching out to people that you already know, looking to expand your network that way. These are all, I think, different ideas at a very high level for online networking, which is a lot harder, by the way, than in-person networking. It was very hard to build an authentic connection through letters on the screen.
Brooke, do you have any suggestion on online versus in-person networking that you might be able to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think for both online and in person, doing your research and doing your homework is really key and important. Again, I think it's a strategy and a plan, and there's time management involved with your lifelong networking. So if you're focusing specifically on a job search, that's one way. But if you're looking to build your network, you know, use the tools that are there, especially in something like LinkedIn, which is the most, largest and most popular networking tool that I think we use, at least here in the States. That, have a plan in mind. And again, be authentic, personalize. I can't tell you how much I appreciate a personalized introduction, and, having a purpose for the reason why we're connecting. How is this going to be mutually beneficial? Again, I think that's where, if somebody says, they see that we both worked at XYZ company before, or, giving me a reason to respond that feels authentic, where we can build something. I think, like Ellie said, have a plan in place, and it's quality over quantity. I mean, I think that's what we've been talking about all along. It's not like, how many friends can I get? It's about, real effective networking. So my advice for in-person is do your research ahead of time. Who's going to be there, and where's your short list of folks that you really want to meet, or companies you want to talk to, and ask open-ended questions so that you can really provide them the opportunity to speak and for you to listen and take notes. We have so many great tools and smartphones. Step aside, take some what was it? Vocal notes is what I'm thinking, when you have a minute. So those are some tools. There's a lot I could get into, so I don't want to.
Thank you. And actually, so I got to also share here, you talk about fun. Ellie mentioned about like fun. I'm one of the person, I'm a people person. So I actually like to have someone in front of me. I just hate trying to actually do any networking, online, because I want to have that exchange. And you spoke about going to shows, and, sometimes I just get energized after coming from a show, because when I actually go to the show, I don't specifically thinking about targeting anybody, but I'm just kind of like open-minded. Who am I going to meet? Just, and really just like really have fun at the show. So, and when you actually just you don't have that pressure about trying to kind of like, looking at the number, hitting numbers. I think things come to you naturally when you just like being yourself. So people who are not extrovert and who are shy, who just not comfortable networking in person, what would you advise them to do? And I'm going to kind of like put that question to you, Aaryn, but anybody can actually ask that question. But I'm just kind of thinking as we are talking here, some people are just extrovert and other ones are not. Some people might be comfortable just doing the in-person, and others might be interesting to just do the online because that's what their comfort zone is. What tools can you give to each one of them based on the strengths and weaknesses on how to use the tools? That's how they're to be an effective networker.
Yeah,
Aaryn?
so you're asking about this for introverts, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so it's interesting because I was going to answer the whole in person of, I tend to gravitate towards energy givers, people who show their passion and know their brand and the impression that they want to leave someone with. That doesn't mean that you have to be an extrovert to be an energy giver. And so how do you show interest and engagement? And that engagement is both with online and in person. What does that look like? And so not staying behind the screen, but really getting out there and showing your interest as an introvert as well. The world tends to reward extroverts, doesn't it? And so, and that's why there's so many different books on how to be an introvert in an extroverted world. And I think that we keep talking about authenticity, but I can't underscore it enough of, if you show your passion and your engagement and why you're really interested in something and can show and deliver those points in an authentic way, it really does make a difference. And so introversion or extroversion doesn't matter at that point. I think that, and I'm actually an extrovert, but going to in-person events can still be draining sometimes because you're navigating so many different people and conversation. But what's important is finding that one or two people who are going to make that connection that you're going to want to meet with after, and find, how you can come together and find commonalities to move something forward. So whether it's your career or introducing to someone else, et cetera. So I don't want any introverts to get concerned about those in-person events, but I think it's really about just being authentic and showing your energy. And what does that look like?
I'll also give a little bit of an answer, because I don't know if I think introvert and extrovert are very complex words with a lot of different meanings to different people. But I'll say I'm actually very naturally shy. Like when I started on my professional journey, it's very hard to go to other people and start talking to them. It's intimidating. What if they don't like you? What if they're too important to spend time with you? It's really it can be very intense, especially if you're starting to go to events. Or thinking about this. It's like, well, why would someone want to talk to me? I would say a few tips. One thing I personally did when I first started doing this sort of networking at events is I just went to a lot of events and I didn't have any expectation. If I went to an event and I just ate food and sat around and didn't find someone to talk to, that was okay, right? Or if I wasn't feeling great that day and I was nervous or shy, or I didn't get the amazing contacts that I was hoping to get, it's fine. You've spent 2 hours. It's an investment in time and in self-growth. And you tried different things, right? What was the approach you had to someone that didn't work, and why? Was it the person? Was it you? Were you having a bad day? Were you just not hot that day in terms of like having conversation flow? Maybe there's something on your mind. That's totally fine. You have to have self-compassion in these things. There've been times I've gone to like 10, 15 events in a row, and I didn't really meet anybody that I thought was someone I wanted to really stay in touch with, or that connected with me at the event. Now, the flip side is, I think that if you're at an event, there will be people who are standoffish or maybe not very warm. They're not there to meet people necessarily. They're not there to meet you, and that's okay. And there are people who are very warm and who are truly and genuinely interested in other people, and they want to hear about your story. They want to connect with you. And I think when you meet those people, have a few just basic questions ready. Don't get caught off guard. Don't talk about the weather. Ask a sincere question that is going to give you insight about that person. See if you can strike up a conversation with them. An event, everyone's busy, so you're probably not going to have a 45-minute conversation about the meaning of life, but you might realize that you have a common interest, or you know someone in common, or that you think there's someone that is worth hanging out with you. And I think of it as like making a friend, right? If at the end of that conversation, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes, you think that person is worth keeping in your personal network, maybe exchanging cards or emails if they don't have a card. Never let someone tell you they don't have a card and have that be the end of the discussion. Say, fine, I'll write down your email. Lots of times people are guarded at these events, and that's fine. Ask people for their email or the numbers. And then reach out to them in a week. Hey, I was thinking about our conversation, or I thought about this and that we talked about. Always bring it back to what you discussed, and have something that stands out. And just as someone mentioned, taking notes is always a good idea. If you're at an event and you have 3 or 4 conversations that you felt were important, take some notes, reach out to the person in a week, and try to set up like an in-person meeting if you can, like a lunch or a coffee, just to learn about your mutual backgrounds. Like, I think most events is just an opportunity to quickly connect and get a sense of whether there's someone that you want in your network, and if they want you in your network. But don't expect to be best friends after 20 minutes. And if you're shy that day, that's okay. You can go home and and go to another time. You'll feel better. Maybe that time you'll have more practice under your belt. And you'll work on your process. Not every process is ideal. Sometimes you have a good joke, or you make a witty observation, and sometimes it just falls flat, or the person you're talking to is not having a good day, and that's fine.
Yeah. Hey, Eli, I do want to add one thing to that really quickly that you reminded me of, because this often happens in interviews where you leave an interview, you thought of something you forgot to say, and you send that note. And so oftentimes, especially in-person events, they will provide the attendance list, or you'll meet them. And so your follow-up that you're talking about is really critical. Even if you didn't get a chance to, I didn't get a chance to meet you, Spencer, today. So how do we follow up after and make that introduction? And so I think that follow-up is really important. That was a good point.
Yes, and just very quickly, just touching on that follow-up, making it sincere. having something that is personalized so it doesn't look generic. And as someone mentioned in the notes, being absolutely certain that it doesn't look like you want something from that person. If I meet someone at an event and all I can think of when they reach out is, oh, they want to sell me something or they want something from me, unless if I really like very deeply, felt very connected to the person for whatever reason in the 10 minutes I spoke with them, I don't want to end up in a situation where I agree to lunch with someone and I feel like I'm the target of a sales pitch or someone wants something from me. I want to connect with people that I think are interesting and that I am hopeful, maybe they'll be friends for a very long time, people I can really connect with and know is more than someone who just wants something from me. So that's not really very pleasant to be in that situation.
Jeanine, I have one more thing to add too.
Yes, please.
The follow-up, being genuine in that follow-up, I think, again, I want to go back to reciprocity, right? Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, it's about building meaningful conversations. If you walk away with anything, with maybe a few contacts, friends, had some meaningful conversations, that's a win. But I think, again, listening. And if there's some way you can have an exchange of information after the fact in your introduction, where it said, oh, you said you were visiting XYZ, you should really visit this location, place, business, etc., or sharing a product that you discussed, in your networking. But it's not necessarily, it's not a sale, right? So it's an exchange of information. So sharing an article about something that you talked about, something like that. I think it shows that you have interest in continuing the conversation with me in a meaningful way. So I like that when somebody sends me something, some sort of little morsel after the fact that I can, relate back to.
Yeah. And one other kind of tidbit, especially for introverts out there, one thing that took me a very long time to figure out, but I really strongly suggest you keep in mind is, you could be the best networker in the world, the most charismatic, amazing person, and still not get a response to the most thoughtfully written, most detailed and well-researched email. I think the most important thing in this process, whether you're a seasoned networker or an introvert or even an extrovert getting started, is to have a really thick skin, to realize that you're going to have to invest a lot of time to build out your network. There's going to be a lot of misses. And, if you think there's something wrong in your approach, definitely bounce it off friends, share emails that you're sending and get feedback. But probably it's not you, it's them. People are busy. Sometimes you gotta ping people, and that's okay if you email someone, you don't hear anything at all after a week or two, just like, hey, just checking in. Really enjoyed spending, without being pushy, especially that's where not wanting something from them becomes powerful. People sense that generally you're just trying to connect and they sense that you're busy and you're just reaching out again. That's fine too. But don't take it personally if someone doesn't reach back out. No one's too important for you or too busy for you. If you're genuine and you do good work, you'll connect with good people.
I love it. I love the fact that we're all people, actually, we're all human, and sometimes I think we forget. So especially if you're trying to get in touch with somebody you really want to get in touch with, and you just freeze. I know for me, even though I'm very seem to be like outgoing, if I need something from someone, somehow I just paralyzed. So, and I found that to actually be very powerful. You mentioned earlier, Spencer, who's actually on the phone, he's one of the greatest networker. So if, I've gotten to a situation when I'm trying to get a hold of somebody that I don't know, but maybe Spencer know that person. And I reach out to Spencer and I say, hey, Spencer, I know you know this person, is there any way you can, introduce me to that person? And just like, oh yeah, people are actually very, if you have some friends who might be able to introduce you to someone else, it's always also not a good approach about going, that route, about asking that person to, open the door for you, just make an introduction for you, because sometimes that makes even, that other person on the other end who didn't know you being willing to, talk to you and share information with you. And I like the fact that you also mentioned about find out what those, whoever you're trying to get in touch with, what are they interested in? I always find out that I 90% of the time, anyone that I have contact with that I'm trying to reach to, always find that there's something I can just share with them that will be of an interest for them. If that means personal or business wise, so feel free to share with others. I think that sharing is also another great tool to, to utilize to actually be able to kind of get an interest from whoever you're trying to get connected to. So now as we are getting ready to go to Expo, in April, which is a big show, which is very exhausting. I always come out of there just completely exhausted from just sharing, talking, and you talk about listening, which I think is kind of a good tool because it can just let you now just like exhaust yourself. What are the tools and what are the tips, I must say, that you might be able to share with our audience that, if they go to a big show versus a small show, they might be able to utilize. And anyone can jump in to start on responding on that.
I'll jump in. I would say that having those questions, I mean, you don't want to have a rehearsed, like a too well rehearsed, pitch of yourself, but there's two parts I think that are important. One is having a very short introduction for yourself, saying who you are, what you do, and make it unique. It doesn't have to be your title. It could be something, even something maybe funny about it, that is unique in the description of what you do and why it's important or why it's valued in your company and organization. But I also think that having a list, not necessarily you're going to pull out of your pocket, but that list of open-ended questions, because you freeze, right? You don't want to say, what's your name? What do you do, to everybody that you walk up to, but having those open-ended questions. I think going into Expo, you have a very specific targeted audience of coffee professionals, people that are, coffee's the center of everything. So trying to kind of figure out a great open-ended question. How, what is your coffee journey? How did you get into coffee? There's so many great questions to ask. I would say having those questions at the ready is really important.
Yeah, I would also say organizing all of the people, all the information from all the people you're meeting is just as important as the interaction itself. Usually I carry my phone around with me, and I have like a little notepad on the phone or something. I'll write people's names down. I'll write down their contact information and a little bit of information about the interaction, so that when I follow up with them, the last thing you want to do when you interact with someone is just add them to a mailing. Like I get furious if I talk to someone at a show and then I never hear from them, but I'm on their mailing list. Suddenly it's like they remember to take down my email address, but they never actually connected with me as a human. So definitely don't do that. But I think that if you're able to reach out to people after the show and follow up on whatever the conversation is, and always have something to follow up with, that's very thoughtful. You don't have to follow up with everyone, by the way. It's okay. I have at a trade show, usually I talk to about 1,000 people at a trade show, and I usually stay in touch with a small fraction of those because I'm busy and they're busy, and it's okay. I don't expect everyone to follow up with me either. But I do think it can be very flattering if someone does reach out to me from a trade show and they remember something we discussed and are genuinely following up, not because they want something, but because they want to stay connected. I usually remember that. That's actually very rare. So those are things that you could think of. Also, I think that, one of the challenges with trade shows, like let's talk about SCA as an example. It's in Boston. And Boston is, has a great coffee community, but it's somewhat isolated. It's very far up in the Northeast. And so it's very likely that a lot of the people you meet there are not from Boston. Obviously, the three of us definitely are as far away from Boston as can be. So thinking also about your strategy of how you're going to stay in touch with those people. Are you going to meet them at other shows? Are they going to be your show buddies? Or you see them at shows and you connect with them, or maybe you grab a meal with them after the show? Or are they going to be people that you stay in touch with, and check in on their journeys throughout the coffee industry? And then over time, over many, many years, you may find that they might ask you for a favor, you might ask them for a favor, and that's okay. Or you may find that immediately there's room for collaboration business-wise. And at a trade show, that's what people are hoping for. So that's certainly fine, as long as there's some kind of mutually beneficial business to be had, in which case, if we're just talking about typical trade show business, take a note, like this person is this kind of supplier, this kind of distributor, they're interested in this or that. You reach out to them and it can be very business-like, and that's okay, right? Hey, thank you for stopping by the booth. you know, I know that you're distributing X, Y, and Z, and I could definitely use some of that, or I know somebody who would be interested, let me make an intro, something like that. You know, or let's have a chat to think about how our networks, you know, how can we help each other? Maybe I can make an intro for you. I think all of that is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I like that. I think I also tend to sometimes when you're going to a conference or a show, you'll get that list in advance as well. And so I will tend to look through and pre-plan as well. And so who are the handful that I really want to make sure that I don't leave without connecting with them somehow. And so, and then what's the research that I do to make those connections? And I think that while I'm there, both of you have touched on this, and especially Ellie, which is, you know, have I met someone that's interesting that I need to connect someone else with? And so how I just met this person, they're great. You should meet them too. And so they're over here. So how do you share and be open and share that information as well?
I want to actually emphasize something Aaryn said and broaden it a little bit. I think the most powerful networking tool is generosity and not expecting anything in return, right? If you're a generous person and you want to help other people and be good to them, and you allocate time to that, which I personally believe is important, then I think well, number one, I think in and of itself, it's a good way to be. Certainly people were that way with me, but also it's a very powerful way of generating goodwill with people and developing a good reputation generally, because networking is not just a single point-to-point interaction. It's also what people think about you as you go into that, you know, interaction, especially as you build your own personal brand. So being generous, making the introduction, not expecting anything from anyone is fine. If you see that someone is taking more than they should, you know, very politely, you know, you don't owe people your entire schedule to help them or to network for them. But I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with being generous with your introductions and helping people, because people have probably done that for you too.
That's right.
I love that. I love the generosity and not really expecting anything out of it. Just like really kind of going out of your way to, you know, try to connect others, try to share, and, you know, what you know and what you have. And there's a lot of great things that actually come back forward when you do that. So we touched a little bit about, you know, the big show, the expo being the big show, the things to kind of like do, the preparation part of it, and the follow-up that's also important. Also the personal, just personalizing, you know, your response or your touch, your reach. And all of you here, all the three panelists, you come from like, you know, some amazing company that, you know, a lot of people maybe might want to, you know, work for, or might want to be connected, you know, with, you know, for different reasons. So what are the things that you can advise, you know, the listeners here in terms of, we spoke about, just don't come to look for a job when you actually need the job. You know, we talk about like, you know, the homework, we talk about the preparation, we talk about the research, you know, in so many different places about networking, how this is vital and important. What can you share? I know you have a number of you have, you know, a lot of position open right now for people that they can grab. What skills and that you'd be looking for in good candidates? Just, and anyone can jump into this. What are the great skills and qualifications you're looking people?
Yeah, I think it Peet's, you know, and it's interesting, Peet's has an amazing reputation. There's so many folks being in the Bay Area who know Peet's as well. And even when I was, you know, dating Peet's and talking to, you know, about coming to them, it was really about tapping into my network to learn more. And so on the HR and people and culture side, we often build, for those of you that don't know, we often build talent pipelines well in advance. We will network constantly, whether we have a job or not, right? We're talking to people. That's important in your career as well. And so how, and Ellie's been talking a lot about it, is that long-term relationship. And so how do you do that? And that's important. So think about longer term, not just to your point when you need the job, but how you're reaching out. For us, we're lucky enough here to have Connor Regard, who's on the phone. He's our head of recruiting right now for Peet's Coffee, which is wonderful. And he does an amazing job. You may see some of his posts on there. I think I won't talk about the functional and technical expertise, but what I know to be true for us at Peet's Coffee, especially being a new Peetnik, is really looking for that authenticity, bringing your whole self to work, caring about our Peetnik community, owning your job, no matter the role that you're in. You've got personal leadership, whether you're an individual contributor or an executive or a manager, what that looks like. And often our teams are really lovers of food and beverage. What I have found and been kind of really surprised at coming into the coffee industry is so many people, they just don't love the product. They love what we stand for, sustainability, what we're doing at Origin, our relationships with our farmers. They have done so much research. And so I've just been really impressed and proud of the true passion that's come out for our Peetniks and the type of people that we hire, for sure. And then I think the last, and I kind of touched on this, but looking for energy givers. How are you coming in wanting to shape the business, wanting to shape the industry and contribute more? Not just from a product standpoint, from a global sustainability, diversity, inclusion, et cetera standpoint.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Aaryn just said and basically echo everything that she brought up. And I think, I know we keep saying it, authenticity, right? But it's true. We want authentic, passionate, kind people who have a genuine interest in our values and our mission. I'm speaking only to Equator at this point, but we're mission led, we're impact driven. We are a women owned, queer founded local coffee roaster here in the Bay Area as well, headquartered in the Bay Area. And I think that we believe in human connections so much via coffee, especially, that I would encourage people to take the time, if you're reaching out to us, personalize things. I think it's really important that you've done a little bit of research on the company prior to that interview. So I'm looking to, when I'm conducting an interview, I'm hoping that you've visited a cafe or you've at least read through our website. And you can tell if somebody just quickly breezed through and are giving you a couple of, buzzwords, but to see that somebody has true passion and knowledge of the brand is really important. It's obviously not something that is vital, but it makes you stand out. I mean, we're a lot of the organizations, especially in coffee, a lot of the companies are mission driven and have storytelling at the front of the brand. And so I think it's important that we're looking for folks who can continue to help tell our story out there and really match with that values wise. I wanted to say that when networking, that you're being thoughtful and have intention with your introduction and your letter and follow up. I just want to resonate that because it's too often that we don't have personalization. You get hundreds of emails that just have resumes, but no intro. And I really like a good intro. It shows me that you're really interested.
I wanted to share a little bit on the small company perspective, which is quite different. I mean, everything that Aaryn and everyone said is quite critical. But what I want to emphasize that for small company, especially, at least for someone like Ground Control, we're really focused on competency. And so we have a very small number of roles, and we really need to make sure that whoever we fill in those roles, not only that they can do the role well, the competency part, but also that they're going to integrate well into our company. And so we look very carefully at their references, their professional history, and if they have someone who's vouching for them, like if they were introduced to us by a colleague or someone who works here, that person is vouching for the applicant, and that means that we have a much higher degree of certainty that that person is going to be reasonable, that they're going to be hardworking, that they're going to be ethical. These are things we really care about. They're extremely difficult to evaluate in an interview process. Even if you're checking references, lots of times references will say, oh yeah, they're great, but really they're thinking like, oh, they could have worked harder, or maybe they did something that I don't want to share with you because I don't really know you well enough. So when you have that kind of personal introduction, that's extremely important. And I think the flip side of that, something that we see a lot with applicants is maybe they've burned bridges or they've done things that they should have avoided earlier in their career, that creates a question mark. You really want to be careful. Networking is not just going to events, it's also the relationships you build with people that you work with. If you're at even a medium-sized or a small company, everyone at that company that knows who you are, and they're going to spend a lot of time with you, they're going to know what kind of person you are. It's very likely that if you're applying for a role, especially at a smaller company, that small company is going to take the time to understand what kind of experience your colleagues had with you. So keep that in mind. I think that's something that it's a mistake we've seen a lot of people make, but they don't necessarily develop the best relationships with their colleagues or leave the best impression on them. And I think that that's, when you think about networking, it's a lot of networking happens in the workplace.
Wanted to add something really quickly. Something that Aaryn said, we're constantly building our talent pipeline. And it's true, I can't tell you how many times recently I've been pulling up old resumes that I have on file, conversations I had when we didn't have positions open. So please do reach out to the hiring managers, the directors of HR, whomever you can make that connection with, even if the position's not open. If you make that connection now, we might remember you at the top of the list before we even post that position. So I think it's important to look for the companies that really do match what you're looking for, what your main objectives are. And even if they don't have that position for you now, they might later. So networking is a process.
And I actually going to add that to something you mentioned last time, like interning, volunteering, even just like interning at a company. If you had a great desire to work for some company and you probably might not have the specific skill that company might be, asking for, just intern. And one thing I always find to be just like amazing is great people. Great people, you can just place them in different places. It doesn't matter where. If you really have, it's all about the people. And once you have the great people, it doesn't matter the skill that they have or don't have, because they can always learn on the job as well if they don't have the skills coming in. So I know I promise you we're going to have like 15 minutes of Q&A, and we have about 13 minutes before the end of our call. So I'm going to open the floor to all those who are listening in, who have dialed in. Feel free to open your mics, feel free to open your videos as well. And this is your time to ask questions. And if you don't, we're going to continuously talking because we got a lot to share. So the floor is yours. Anyone has any question? I know that Spencer, he will say that he believed that in coffee, he believed in coffee people helping coffee people. So I mean, that's one of the things that I love about this industry. I came in working in coffee because this is a place I truly find a human connection that I could actually never be able to find any other place I've worked before. So thanks for all of you who make this place special. So the floor is yours, audience. We won't leave this open for too long. So if you have a question, please feel free.
I think one of the most important things about networking is being bold, asking the question. So we have a lot of people in the audience. Let's have someone. I know one of y'all has something that you want to desperately ask. So go ahead, let's do this.
Or add, you're out there networking. What tips and tricks have we not mentioned that might be working for you? I know Spencer has a few. Is there anyone else who wants to add anything?
Awfully quiet. Anybody want to add another thought before we close our call here?
Sure, I'll add something. I was thinking about the introverts and just the different personality types. And Ellie mentioned something about, kind of, I don't know, I don't even remember what you were saying, but like being anxious or, your energy. We've been talking about energy a little bit. And Jeanine, you said, let's make it fun. Like it should be fun. So authenticity, fun, be comfortable, take a minute, be generous with yourself and forgiving of yourself. Don't set goals that are too high, but when you're there, and if you're an introvert, smile, and body language, try and be as open and keep an open mind as possible. And I think the one takeaway for me is always that people won't necessarily remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And so try to make that genuine, authentic connection and let your guard down a little bit.
Yeah, I love that.
And I also want to add something to that I found to be of a value. If you're going to Expo, please go to those lectures. I always just meet somebody that I would never thought that I'll be able to meet at that place. So if you go to, they're also smaller. So if you're an introvert, for example, you don't like the big crowd, I think if you go to those, lectures, they tend to be smaller, and then you can actually, it's more intimate, and you can actually just like maybe not be as shy to actually, open up or ask a question or talk to someone that you might see there that you've been looking forward to meet. So just kind of another thing I want to share with everybody who was on a call that you might want to keep in mind. Aaryn, I know you want to say something, so I'll let you talk.
Oh, I'm just thinking about the conversation today, and I think how important it is, and we've said it already, but nurturing your network, both the new one that you're building and the current one that you have. And so how do you stay connected, show gratitude? And I think about that even for me. I just recently had reached out to someone in my network that I care about, and I really needed some advice. And then how do I show my gratitude? So it's not always just reaching out for advice, and it's important to nurture the people, your village really, in your community. And so how do you continue to do that ongoing?
Absolutely.
And
I just
it
want to
takes
share.
time. Go ahead, Eli, please.
I just want to share for the audience. I'd love to grow in my networking with y'all. If you enjoyed this talk and you want to meet up at Expo, stop by on day 3 at the ground control booth. I'd love to meet you, hear about what your takeaways were from this panel, and I'd love to meet y'all.
Great.
If you want to drop your contact here as well in the chat for those who might want to follow up with you directly, please feel free to do so. I see Nancy said that maybe some folks can share their plans for connecting in person at Expo or any other in-person coffee event after what may be so long due to COVID restrictions. So don't know if anybody want to share any of the plans that they might have. So, but that's one of the post that she has there. And question from the audience: I love everything I have you are saying, and networking within the industry has been easier for me. I'm struggling though to find a way to network to sell my coffee on a wholesale basis while using the elements you have discussed. Any tips on groups to network with the long-term goal of creating wholesale accounts? Anybody can.
It's a
Ellie,
hard
that
one.
sounds like a question for you.
Yeah, that's a very hard one. I actually, I network with a lot of people who are selling. So are we selling green coffee or roasted coffee? Because I think it's very different. But I would say both of them are very hard. Coffee sales is all about relationships and quality as well, reliability. I would say if you're just starting a coffee roasting business, you want to do wholesale, it's definitely about relationships and proving to people that your coffee is going to change people's business or have a brand around it that is going to stand out. Starting off with a few cafes that are local to you, ideally, making them successful, proving to them that you're investing in the relationship is a very good start. And then having them be references for you. Even if it means early on losing a little bit of money or putting a lot of extra effort into it. I would say, especially in the wholesale coffee business, growing that relationship with the initial customer or two, making them very successful. That's, I think, part of the secret to growing your business. And then, in the meantime, also doing all the other things that are really important for growing a coffee roasting business. We're growing your brand, your quality, and focusing on what differentiates you from the other roasters, because it's very unlikely that you'll be able to sell roasted coffee just because you're that much more interesting. than other people selling roasted coffee. There's a lot of people out there. So really growing those relationships, I think that's critical.
Yeah, I think the question was actually somebody who was asking for roasted coffee. I'm going to just share from my point of view for the green coffee. I think that, some of it you talked about it. Just relationship is very key, and growing those relationships takes time. But also, you have to think coffee. You have to think about coffee beyond coffee. My point of view, and I don't always think about just coffee. It's just like the end goal. Especially in places where we work, we have to think about what else can you provide, because it's in place, especially like in the developing world, which is where most of the green coffee comes from. There is a lot that you can do. You can't go in there just like, let's say, only buying coffee or just selling coffee. You have to do other things. You have to bring other values, both to those with whom you're working with and also to those who are on the receiving end. So it takes some time and strategy, and by sometimes I think some of the answer, it's intuitive once you get in and just listen. When you really do listen carefully, people actually give you the answer. They tell you what they're looking for. So I just invite to that openness about listening, to being authentic, to doing the research, and then to the follow through, and all those require tremendous time and energy. So that's kind of my closing point here. So if anyone wants to close on this, that'll be great. Closing thought, Brooke?
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
Oh, your closing thought.
Oh, I'm just excited to get back to events like this. It's been a long time coming, so I'm looking forward to, meeting more people, building my network, expanding my own network, and finding more interesting people to connect with and to be able to get out there face to face. It's been great on the online versions of things, but in person, that energy, nothing compares. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that.
And actually, I'm going to say, Aaryn, I know you kind of new in the industry, so we are all here. We are all friends. It's a very friendly family. I call coffee just a family business almost, because it's in a very short period of time you're going to find out they actually kind of almost know everybody. So reach out to all of us if you see us at the show. So as I said, this is it's a people industry. So feel free to reach out to anyone, because I seem to find people to be very warm and generous in general.
Wonderful.
Ellie, closing thought?
I would say, for everyone in the audience, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, we're heading into a new era with COVID, hopefully wrapping up soon. I would say get out there as much as possible, even if you're not feeling it, even if you don't know if you're going to have a great event or a great get together. Find events in your community, go out, do something nice for someone, be relentless in your follow-up, but don't be annoying. Be thoughtful, have people that you want to follow up with, and come across as sincere. Be sincere, and don't be looking for something in particular other than just having more fellow travelers that love coffee just like you do, and people you could connect with, and hopefully some of them will grow into close friends, and some will grow into very productive business relationships as well.
I love that. That's great. Jeanine, I'll add in, thank you for that, because it is true. I'm rebuilding my whole network at this point, coming from apparel into specialty coffee. And so I've been busy doing all of that as well, just like all of you, and join me in that and building our coffee village together and connecting, and reach out. I didn't give you my email because I'm terrible at email, but I'm great at LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me there and help me expand my village as well. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And then again, this is going to be it's recorded. It's going to be available on social media on the SCA Instagram. And feel free to share with your network. And looking forward to seeing you at our next business chat, which I think is going to be before the end of this month. But be on the outlook. Always exciting to hear about feedback, and also how we can continuously improve what we are doing. Idea and thoughts about what to discuss is always welcome. Aaryn, thank you so much. Brooke, thank you very much. Ellie, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your thoughts, and also your ideas and your wisdom. So I'll be looking forward to see all of you hopefully at Expo in Boston, and have a wonderful week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jeanine. Thank you, SCA. It was an excellent panel. I really enjoyed it. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Next
you.
time.
Bye.